मनीष, क्या शुरू करना है अभी?
जी सर 4 बज गए सर, हम लोग शुरू कर सकते हैं. यस भावना, वी कैन बिगिन. यू आर ऑडिबल, प्लीज गो अहेड.
Yeah. Namaskar and a very good evening to all participants joining us from various parts of India and the globe for our very special international symposium on idea of Hindavi Swarajya on a very historic occasion celebrating Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Rajyabhishek on this day in 1674. इस पावन अवसर पर मेरा भारत के इस शिखर पुरुष को नम्र अभिवादन. I'm Bhavana Songaria-Dabhade, President of the Indian Futures. I take this opportunity to welcome you all today on behalf of the Indian Futures. I cannot but begin by hoping you and your loved ones are safe and healthy. Let me, as always, introduce TIF very briefly. We are a New Delhi-based independent think tank that started out our journey in January 2016 with the sole aim to creating a global but India-centric platform to plainly and dispassionately discuss in the truest ancient Bharatiya tradition of a samvad, the ideas of a new India. We all, the Indian futures, seek to go beyond the headlines of the day and have an honest, deep conversation amongst the thinking community in India and abroad. We are extremely proud to have recently hosted some of India's and world's finest minds from government, politics, academia, diplomacy, and culture. Shri Arun Kumarji, Shri Sunil Ambikarji, Shri J. Nandakumarji, Shri B. L. Santoshji from BJP, and Shri Suresh Prabhuji, former Cabinet Minister, Shri Devendra Fadnavis, former CM, Shri V. Muralidharan, Minister of State, MEA, Dr. Vinay Sahasrabudhe, President ICCR, and top diplomats such as Shri Vijay Gokhleji, Shri Shyam Saran, Ms. Nirupama Menon Rao, and Shri Kamal Sibbalji, from foreign secretaries, and Professor Santishree Pandit, now JNU BC, who joining us today too, and Professor Makarand Paranjpe, among several others, have addressed us earlier. Before I hand over to Dr. Manish for an introduction to today's symposium, let me remind you all to follow us on FB, Twitter, Insta, and YouTube at Indian Futures, and feel free to share today's program with hashtag TF Shivaji Rajyabhishek. Thanks again to all joining us here on Zoom and others on our YouTube channel where we are already live streaming this program. Over to you, Dr. Manish.
धन्यवाद भावना जी. मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
जी बिल्कुल.
धन्यवाद. आप सभी का पुनः मनपूर्वक स्वागत. सर्वप्रथम मैं भारतवर्ष के शिखर पुरुष छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज को नम्र अभिवादन करता हूँ और आप सबको शिवाजी महाराज के 348वें राज्याभिषेक दिवस पर हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं देता हूँ. यह वर्ष भारत की आज़ादी का अमृत महोत्सव का भी है, इसलिए यह आज का पावन पर्व अधिक महत्व भी रखता है. Let us all remember that Shivaji Maharaj was born with a dream of Hindavi Swarajya, जिसको स्वकीयों का राज्य कहते हैं, जो स्व की भावना से प्रेरित राज्य का था, जो धर्म राज्य है. And in fact, Shivaji Maharaj took oath of establishing Hindavi Swarajya at the tender age of 15 in 1645 and was crowned on 6 June 1674. That was in fact called Indrabhishek, जो प्रभु श्री राम और महाराज युधिष्ठिर ने किया था, जो विष्णु के अवतार है. इस भाव से हिंदवी स्वराज्य की संकल्पना और सिद्धि दोनों स्व और मातृभूमि की स्वतंत्र करने की एक सफल कोशिश हम लोग सब इस भाव से उसको देखना चाहिए. जो भारत इनफैक्ट पीपल आर नाउ टॉकिंग अबाउट दिस होल यूनियन ऑफ स्टेट्स. उनको दोबारा इस इतिहास को, स्वर्णिम इतिहास को दोबारा एक देखने की ज़रूरत है और पढ़ने की ज़रूरत है. मैं सिर्फ बहुत संक्षिप्त में 2 बातें कहूँगा जो मुझे लगता है कि बहुत बढ़िया तरीके से कही गई है. माननीय सरसंघचालक जी मोहन भागवत जी ने कुछ साल पहले किसी पुस्तक के विमोचन में ये कहा था कि शिवाजी महाराज जो है एक श्रीमान योगी थे, जैसे उनको जाना जाता है, और उनका जो व्यक्तिमत्व है, कर्तृत्व है और नेतृत्व आज भी अति स्मरणीय है। उनकी भविष्य दृष्टि थी। और जो इनफैक्ट सबसे अति महत्वपूर्ण बात जो मोहन भागवत जी ने कही थी कि आज समय अलग है, लेकिन फिर भी महाराज के जो बहुत सारे विचार है हिंदवी स्वराज्य के, ये बहुत ही प्रासंगिक है। तो ये क्या है, कैसे है, इन सब चीज को हमको समझने की जरूरत है। और इनफैक्ट आई वुड टू ऐड वन मोर थिंग, प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी इनफैक्ट ऑल्सो congratulating शिव शाहिर बाबा साहेब पुरंदरे on turning 100 last year, on 13th August 2021. This is what he had said about Hindavi Swarajya, which I think was fascinating. That in fact Hindavi Swarajya, and I quote him, was the finest example of Sushasan, good governance. It was about justice to the deprived and fight against injustice. Shivaji Maharaja's management, his effective use of marine powers, utility of navy, effects, also, for example, on watershed management, and several such works are still imitable. This is what Prime Minister Modi had said then in his video address. I have many more things to obviously flag for today's symposium, but I'll surely stop here. And we really looking forward to hearing Dr. Manmohan Vaidya ji, and we have a deep, true honor that he has joined us today. So let me now request Professor Aayushi Ketkar.
Thank you, Manish. You've given me the very tough task of introducing a person who is probably, his name is synonymous to RSS itself. So we're honored to have Dr. Manmohan Vaidya ji with us today. Manmohan ji, पहले से ही आपसे क्षमा मांगूंगी, because आपका परिचय देना सूर्य को दिया दिखाने के भांति है, तो और इतने कम समय में ये उचित तरीके से मुझसे होगा नहीं, लेकिन हमारे ऑडियंस के लिए it's a brief introduction, because आपका परिचय आपकी तरह विस्तार है, एकदम प्रभावशाली. Dr. Manmohan Vaidya ji is basically from Nagpur. He hails from the city of Nagpur, which happens to be the headquarters of RSS. He has an impeccable pedigree. He was born to Mago Vaidya. He's the son of Mago Vaidya ji, who was RSS first Prachar Pramukh. And with that illustrious pedigree, he has walked into his father's footsteps by being an ideal ideologue of the Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh. For a change, it's really surprising, because not many people would know that the Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh, and today is an example, has some very articulate thinkers and ideologues, and Manmohan ji belongs to that category. He has done his PhD in nuclear chemistry, yet believes strongly in the roots of this country. उनका पूरा जीवन और जीवन शैली इस देश और इस भारतवर्ष को दर्शाता है. It's really an honor to have you, sir. He's a prolific reader and writer who has written many articles on the issue, on various contemporary issues that Bharat deals with. His latest book, Hindu Rashtra, is a compilation of his articles and interviews on contemporary issues that Bharat is confronting. He's multilingual, knows more than 5 languages, in fact, has command over 5 languages. And he has spent 22 years as Prant Pracharak of Gujarat. So truly, he even understands economics as much as he understands politics and ideology and strategy, and most important, the grand narrative of India. We're truly honored to have a true blue Maharashtrian today with us to speak on a very important and pertinent topic of Shivaji Maharaj and his vision for this country, the creation of the Hindavi Swaraj. Over to you, Manmohan ji. माफ कीजिए, मैं आपका सबसे important and परिचय भूल गई. Dr. Manmohan Vaidya ji happens to be the Joint General Secretary of the RSS, जिसे हम कहते हैं Sah-Sarkaryawah of Swayam Sevak Sangh. So, thank you so much.
नमस्कार सबको. So, am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
जी, thank you. तो आपने आज के लिए मुझे यहाँ बोलने के लिए बुलाया, इसलिए आप सबका हार्दिक आभार है. जिस महापुरुष के स्मरण में आज का दिन हम यहाँ मनाने वाले हैं, ऐसे छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज को मैं पहले प्रणाम करता हूँ. शिवाजी के जीवन में शिवाजी का राज्याभिषेक होना यह बहुत महत्व की घटना है। जिस कालखंड में, जिस स्थिति में हिंदू राजा हो ही नहीं सकता ऐसा लोग मानते थे, वहां पर उन्होंने डंके की चोट के सभी की उपस्थिति में और उस समय के सभी सल्तनत लोगों के द्वारा सम्मत ऐसा एक बड़ा राजाभिषेक का समारंभ हुआ। मेरा सुझाव लेकिन आप लोगों को ऐसा है कि वो राज्याभिषेक 6 जून को नहीं हुआ था, वो ज्येष्ठ शुक्ल त्रयोदशी को हुआ था। और भारतीय कालगणना अधिक प्राचीन है, अधिक साइंटिफिक है, एग्जैक्ट है, इसलिए हम लोग भी भारतीय कालगणना के अनुसार करेंगे। दैट में हैपन ऑन सम डे, वो डे बदल, जैसे रामनवमी है, राम जी का जन्म या कृष्ण जी का जन्म, हम जन्माष्टमी को मनाते, इंग्लिश तारीख उसके बदलते रहती है। ऐसे इस वर्ष ये वैसे 12 जून को है, तो हम अगर ज्येष्ठ शुक्ल त्रयोदशी, क्योंकि उस दिन मुहूर्त देखकर अच्छे शुभ दिन करने का तय हुआ, दैट हैपन टू बी 6 जून, इसलिए हम लोग इसके आगे जब करेंगे, अगर ज्येष्ठ शुक्ल त्रयोदशी को करेंगे तो नए लोगों को, आज के पीढ़ी को भारतीय कालगणना का साइंटिफिक इम्पोर्टेंस, एग्जैक्टनेस, इसकी भी जानकारी भी शायद मिलेगी। लेकिन एनीवे, और भारत के इतिहास में 3 ऐसे महापुरुष, युग पुरुष हुए जिन्होंने धर्म के तत्व को ठीक समझकर उसका युगानुकूल इंटरप्रिटेशन करते हुए उसका पालन आचरण किया है। ऐसे पहले भगवान श्री कृष्ण हुए, फिर चाणक्य हुए, फिर शिवाजी महाराज हुए। इसलिए शिवाजी के जीवन का इस तरह से आपको गहराई से अध्ययन करना चाहिए। शिवाजी राजा तो बने, उन्होंने लेकिन रामदास स्वामी को पूर्ण राज्य सौंप दिया था, और रामदास के श्री के, जब भगवान की इच्छा के नाते, उनके ट्रस्टी के नाते मैं राज्य को स्वीकार करूंगा, चलाऊंगा, ऐसा कहकर इतने अच्छी तरह से चलाया। इसलिए एक अर्थ में वे साम्राज्य के अलिप्त उपभोक्ता थे, इसलिए उनको श्रीमंत योगी कहा है, एकदम सार्थक है। मेरे बोलने का विषय, लेकिन हिंदवी स्वराज्य ऐसा जब मुझे कहा गया तो मुझे इसमें 3 शब्द दिखे। एक हिंदवी है, एक राज्य है, राज है, और एक स्व है। तो शिवाजी का राज्य सुराज्य तो था ही, अच्छा राज्य था, लेकिन वह स्वराज्य था। ये स्व क्या है, इस पर मैं बोलना चाहूंगा। ये स्व, ये भारत का स्व है, और भारत के स्व की विशेषता ऐसे, दुनिया के सभी देशों में भारत को एक यूनिक आइडेंटिटी है। उसका कारण है भारत का व्यू ऑफ लाइफ, जिसका बेस स्पिरिचुअलिटी है। अध्यात्म आधारित जीवन का दृष्टिकोण होना, यह भारत की विशेषता है। एंड दैट इज व्हाई दिस व्यू ऑफ लाइफ इज होलिस्टिक एंड इंटीग्रल। दैट्स व्हाई इट सीज द एंटायर क्रिएशन कनेक्टेड। इसलिए केवल अपने बारे में नहीं सोचते हैं, तो सारे विश्व के बारे में। हमारे यहाँ सभी मंदिरों में तो विश्व का कल्याण हो, प्राणियों में सद्भाव, ऐसा ही क्या है, इसके पीछे ये स्पिरिचुअल कनेक्शन की बात है। भारत ने कभी मानवता को 2 भाग में डिवाइड नहीं किया, हम एंड अदर्स, ऐसे 2 भाग में कभी डिवाइड नहीं किया है, जो सेमेटिक थॉट हमेशा करता है। तो ये भारत का स्व, जो अध्यात्म आधारित जीवन का दृष्टिकोण है, दिस वे ऑफ लाइफ हैज शेप्ड द पर्सनैलिटी ऑफ भारत। तो इस स्वराज्य में ये सारी बातें होनी चाहिए, ये स्व है मुख्यतः। इस भारत के पर्सनैलिटी के जो 4 सेलिएंट फीचर्स है, उसमें से पहला है कि एकम सद विप्रहा बहुधा वदन्ति। ट्रुथ इज वन, इट कैन बी कॉल्ड बाय डिफरेंट नेम्स एंड इट कैन बी रीच्ड बाय डिफरेंट पाथ्स, ऑल आर इक्वल। सभी को समान मानकर स्वीकार करना, ये भारत की विशेषता रही है। आजकल एक शब्द भारत के बारे में चलता है कि भारत बहुत सहिष्णु देश है, वी आर वेरी टॉलरेंट। ये वास्तव में भारत का सही वर्णन नहीं है। टॉलरेंस में एक्चुअली इंटॉलरेंस है। व्हेन आई से दैट आई कैन टॉलरेट यू, इसका अर्थ यह है कि एक्चुअली आई वांट टू हिट और किल यू, बट बिकॉज इट डजंट लुक गुड, सो आई विल टॉलरेट यू। स्वामी विवेकानंद 1893 में शिकागो में जो वर्ल्ड पार्लियामेंट ऑफ रिलीजन्स में गए थे, वहां पर अधिकतर लोग मेरा ही रिलीजन सत्य है बाकी झूठ है, ऐसा ही कहने वाले थे। ये ही शब्द भारत का नहीं, भारत का शब्द भी है, मेरा भी आपका भी। उसमें some people came with the idea we can tolerate you, एक लिबरल थॉट, लेकिन उसमें इंटॉलरेंस है। उसमें विवेकानंद ने कहा कि वी गो बियॉन्ड टॉलरेंस एंड वी एक्सेप्ट ऑल वेज टू बी ट्रू। तो सबका स्वीकार करना, यह वास्तव में भारत का का चरित्र रहा है, भारत का विचार रहा है। नॉट जस्ट टॉलरेंस, इसको भी हमको समझना चाहिए। दूसरा जो पहलू है टू सी यूनिटी इन डाइवर्सिटी। तो विविध रूपों के भीतर जो एकता का सूत्र है, इस एकता को देखने की भारत की अलग दृष्टि रही है। इसलिए इसलिए भारत इस डाइवर्सिटी को डिफरेंसेस नहीं मानता और पराये को दुश्मन नहीं मानता, और इसलिए डाइवर्सिटी के अंदर की एकता के ये डाइवर्स मैनिफेस्टेशंस है। तो डाइवर्सिटी को सेलिब्रेट करने की भारत की परंपरा रही है। इसलिए भारत का वर्णन इंडिया इज ए कंट्री ऑफ डाइवर्स कल्चर्स ऐसा जो होता है वह भी सही नहीं है। यहाँ डाइवर्स कल्चर्स नहीं है, तो इंडिया हैज ए कल्चर दैट सेलिब्रेट्स डाइवर्सिटी। यह वास्तव में भारत का सही सही परिचय है। हमारी संस्कृति एक ही है, उसके मैनिफेस्टेशन डाइवर्स होते हैं। ये इसका आधार वास्तव में आध्यात्मिकता है। तीसरी महत्व की बात जो भारत के पर्सनैलिटी की ऐसी है कि भारत मानता है कि एवरी सोल इज पोटेंशियली डिवाइन। ये व्यक्ति शब्द है, सोल शब्द, ये मनुष्य और मतलब पुरुष और स्त्री दोनों को समान रूप से लागू होता है। तो पुरुष में स्त्री में यह पोटेंशियल डिविनिटी इक्वल यानी समान रूप से विद्यमान है। यह केवल भारत मानता है दुनिया में, बाकी कोई नहीं मानता है। एंड द गोल ऑफ ह्यूमन लाइफ इज टू मैनिफेस्ट द डिविनिटी विद इन बाय कंट्रोलिंग नेचर इंटरनल एंड एक्सटर्नल। तो ये मेरे अंदर के दिव्यत्व को मुझे प्रकट करने के का प्रयत्न करना चाहिए। तो भारत के सभी भाषा भाषी, सभी जाति के नाम से जाने जाने वाले, गांव के, शहर के, पढ़े अनपढ़ सब लोग इस दिशा में प्रयत्न रहते हैं कि मोक्ष प्राप्ति की दिशा में आगे बढ़ना है, और मेरे अंदर के दिव्यत्व को मुझे 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 प्रकट करने का सतत प्रयास करना है। अब इसमें भी जो मार्ग बताए स्वामी विवेकानंद कहते हैं, डू इट आइदर बाय वर्क या वर्शिप, मतलब कर्मयोग, भक्ति योग और साइकिक कंट्रोल और मेडिटेशन, यानी ज्ञान योग या राजयोग। ये भी भारत की ब्यूटी है। अगर एक्सक्लूसिव वाली बात होती जो भारत के बाहर के लोगों की होती है कि आपने एक को स्पर्श किया तो आप दूसरे को टच नहीं कर सकते, लेकिन भारत का विचार कैसा है? तो स्वामी विवेकानंद के 1893 के शिकागो स्पीच में उन्होंने एक बात और कही थी बड़े गर्व से। उन्होंने कहा कि आई एम प्राउड टू टेल यू दैट आई एम फ्रॉम ए कंट्री वेयर इज अवर डिवाइन लैंग्वेज संस्कृत, देयर इज नो वर्ड फॉर एक्सक्लूजन। एक्सक्लूड करने के लिए भारतीय भाषा में शब्द ही नहीं है, बिकॉज वी डू नॉट एक्सक्लूड एनीबॉडी, वी इंक्लूड ऑल। इसलिए जो चार मार्ग बताए हैं अपने आप के मुक्ति की दिशा में जाने के लिए, तो विवेकानंद कहते हैं चूज एनी ऑफ दीज फोर और टू और मोर और ऑल एंड बी फ्री। यानी सभी का, तो प्रत्येक का इस मुक्ति के तरफ जाने का जो मार्ग है उसने चुना हुआ, उसका कंपोजिशन ये चारों का मिक्स हो सकता है। मेरा अगर 50% कर्मयोग, 30% भक्ति योग और बाकी दो 10-10% है, तो मेरी बहन का अलग हो सकता है, मेरे भाई का कंपोजिशन अलग हो सकता है। ये हमारी हर एक की अपनी अपनी व्यक्तिगत उपासना है। इस उपासना को रिलीजन आप कह सकते हैं। धर्म अलग है, धर्म का अंग्रेजी में कोई शब्द नहीं है। जो मैंने सबसे आरंभ में धर्म का उल्लेख किया था, दैट धर्म इज नॉट रिलीजन। तो प्रत्येक की अपनी अपनी उपासना चुनने का हर एक को अधिकार। इसलिए एक ही परिवार में हम देखते हैं कोई सोमवार का व्रत रखता है, कोई मंगल करता है, कोई गुरुवार का रखता है, कोई नहीं रखता है, कोई देवी के मंदिर में जाएगा, गणेश जी के मंदिर में जाएगा। अभी परसों मैंने किस्सा सुना, कुछ फॉरेन के लोग महाराष्ट्र में गणेशोत्सव देखने के लिए आए थे, और गणेश जी की जब आरती हुई, उसके बाद में वहां देवी जी की आरती हुई, श्री कृष्ण की आरती हुई, सारा दे वर शॉक कि गणेश जी की मूर्ति सामने रखी है, फिर बाकी देवताओं की आरती आप क्यों कर रहे हैं। उन्होंने जब यह प्रश्न पूछा, एक छोटा बालक था 10 साल का, उसने कहा सब एक ही तो है। अब ये सब एक ही है, ये उसको समझना बड़ा कठिन हो जाता है। यहाँ एक छोटा ट्राइबल एरिया का बालक भी सहज कहता है सब एक ही तो है। तो ये जो है कि मेरा जो स्पिरिचुअल परस्यूट का मेरा मार्ग कंपोजिशन है, वो चुनने का स्वातंत्र फ्रीडम मुझे यहाँ मिला है। इसलिए हमारे यहाँ कहा है, रिलीजन इज पर्सनल एज वंस ओन टूथ ब्रश। इसलिए हमारे यहाँ पहले से स्पिरिचुअल डेमोक्रेसी रही है। और ये मुख्यतः जो भारत की 4 मुख्य बातें हैं। इसलिए हमारे यहाँ के पूजा घरों में, किसी घर में आप जाएंगे तो अनेक देवी देवताओं के चित्र होते हैं। किसी नए स्पिरिचुअल लीडर का चित्र कोई लेकर आता है, माता अमृतानंद अम्मा का लेकर आएंगे या और कोई लेकर आएंगे, तो बाकी चित्रों को थोड़ा खिसका के उसको एकोमोडेट करने की जो सहज प्रवृत्ति है, ये सारे भारत में एक समान दिखती है। ये एकोमोडेशन है, ये बहुत सहज है। तो ये मिलाकर जो भारत की पर्सनैलिटी बनी है, तो भारत में रहने वाला पढ़ा अनपढ़, गांव का, शहर का, गरीब अमीर, सभी लोग इसके साथ अपने आप को जोड़ते, दे कनेक्ट विथ अस। ये हमारी पहचान है, और ये पहचान, ये भारत का वास्तव में स्व है। इस पहचान को सारा भारतीय समाज आपस में जुड़ा हुआ है, एंड दैट इज इर्रेस्पेक्टिव ऑफ द स्टेट। स्टेट अलग अलग हो सकते हैं, राजा अनेक हो सकते हैं, बट पीपल आर कनेक्टेड विद दिस व्यू। इस प्रकार से इसको दुनिया में हिंदुत्व कहते हैं। तो ये शिवाजी का जो राज्य स्थापन हुआ, इस राज्य इस स्व के आधार पर था। शिवाजी का राज्य सुराज्य तो था ही, लेकिन उसके पहले वो यहाँ पर हिंदवी स्वराज्य नहीं लिखा है, हिंदवी स्वराज्य कहा है। यह स्व की पहचान, दिस स्व इज नोन इन द वर्ल्ड एज हिंदू, बीइंग हिंदू। इसलिए हिंदू ये यहाँ के समाज का नाम पड़ा। समाज को ही हमारे यहाँ राष्ट्र कहते हैं। भारत के संदर्भ में जो पश्चिम का नेशन स्टेट है वो अलग है, वहां का नेशनलिज्म एकदम अलग है। यहाँ पर पीपल आर द नेशन। राजा अनेक थे, और राजा के राज्य अलग अलग होंगे, राज्यों की सीमा कम ज्यादा होती थी, परंतु पीपल वेर कनेक्टेड, पीपल वेर वन। और इसलिए सारे भारत के लोग अपने एक राष्ट्र के नाते, इसलिए यहाँ के लोगों का नाम हिंदू यह पड़ा। इसलिए हिंदवी स्वराज्य में, वहां की भाषा में, यह स्वराज्य जो है वो हिंदवी है, इस अर्थ में आया है। और हिंदवी स्वराज्य नहीं, हिंदवी का, हिंदू का स्व है, यह भारत का स्व है। यह भारत का स्व सारे विश्व को अपने साथ लेने की बात करता है, क्योंकि इट सीज द एंटायर क्रिएशन कनेक्टेड विद स्पिरिचुअलिटी। यह पहला भाग है। दूसरी भारत की विशेषता है, भारत के स्व की, वह है, जैसा मैंने कहा, रविन्द्रनाथ टैगोर ने स्वदेशी समाज नाम के अपने ऐसे में लिखा है कि वेलफेयर स्टेट वाज नेवर इंडियन ट्रेडिशन। ये पश्चिम की कल्पना है, ये यूरोप की कल्पना है। हमारे यहाँ राज्य केवल डिफेंस, फॉरेन अफेयर, जुडिशरी, 3 विभाग केवल राजा के पास, स्टेट के पास होते थे। बाकी एजुकेशन, हेल्थ, व्यापार, ट्रेडिंग, आर्थिक सारी बातें, संगीत, कला, मेला, यात्रा, ये सारे समाज की अपनी व्यवस्था थी। एक खंबे पर खड़ा तंबू है, वो तंबू, एक खंबा टूटता है, तंबू धराशायी होता है। लेकिन 4-5 खंबों पर खड़ा तंबू है, एक खंबा टूटता है तो तंबू धराशायी नहीं होता, इट विल गेट डी शेप। उसको फिर से अंदर से ठीक से फिर से खड़ा करने की सुविधा वहां रहती है। वी हैव दैट अरेंजमेंट। रविन्द्रनाथ टैगोर कहते हैं, वह समाज जो अपनी आवश्यकताओं के लिए राज्य पर कम से कम डिपेंडेंट है, वह स्वदेशी समाज है। हमारी व्यवस्था ऐसी थी, इसलिए यहाँ राजा पराजित हुए, परकियों का राज्य भी आया, लेकिन राष्ट्र हमेशा अपराजित रहा है। चलिए यहाँ पर एक कंटिन्यूम देखने को मिलता है। ग्रीस नाम का देश आज भी है, आज के लोग भी पहले के ग्रीस के लोगों के डिसेंडेंट्स ही है, लेकिन मुझे लगता नहीं ग्रीस में किसी परिवार में आज एरिस्टोटल, पाइथागोरस, सोक्रेटिस, गैलीलियो, आर्किमिडीज ऐसे नाम बच्चों के देखने को मिलेंगे। परंतु भारत में आज भी बच्चों के नाम नचिकेता, ध्रुव, गार्गी, मैत्रेयी सहज देखने को मिलते हैं। ये जो कंटिन्यूम है, ये कंटिन्यूम बहुत महत्व का है। ऐसे राज्याधारित न रहकर समाज की अपनी व्यवस्था अलग होना। और तीसरी छोटी बात मैं करूंगा कि एक केवल भौतिक समृद्धि के पीछे दौड़ना ठीक नहीं माना है, केवल आध्यात्मिक उन्नति के पीछे लगना
Have we lost him?
We can't hear him now. Should we call and find out?
Yeah, I'll just.
I think we've lost him. We're just waiting another couple of minutes. He should be back.
Manish, kindly give him a call just to find out. In the meantime, I take this opportunity to welcome our other panelists. Is Manmohan joining us? We have our VC ma'am who has already joined us. Welcome, ma'am, to TIF. Air Marshal Ajit Bhonsle is with us. Thank you, sir, for joining us. We have some senior professors with us. Professor Rajkumar Bhatia from Delhi University, Professor Satish Kumar from IGNU. Welcome to all of you. Yes, we have Manmohan joining us. He's joined us. He's connected.
Okay. Should I continue?
जी मनमोहन जी।
सॉरी फॉर द इंटरप्शन। मैं प्रचार विभाग के कार्यालय में आया था, भरोसे का इंटरनेट होगा समांतर, वही डिस्टर्ब हो गया, तो ये मेरा अपना चल रहा है। सो लास्ट पार्ट वाज, तो उपनिषद कहता है अंधम तमः प्रविशन्ति ये अविद्यायाम उपासते, यानी जो केवल भौतिक समृद्धि के पीछे दौड़ते हैं वे गहरे अंधकार में जाते हैं। अगला वाक्य है, और जो केवल विद्या में रत रहते हैं, जो केवल आध्यात्मिक उन्नति की चिंता करते हैं, वे और गहरे अंधकार में जाते, ऐसा कहते हैं। 11वां श्लोक है, विद्याम च अविद्याम च यहाँ तद उभयम वेदः, विद्या और अविद्या दोनों को जिसने साथ साथ जाना है, अविद्या मृत्युम तीर्थवा विद्या मृतम अश्नुते, यानी भौतिक समृद्धि और आध्यात्मिक उन्नति दोनों को साथ साथ साधना, यह वास्तव में भारत का मूल विचार है। यह भी भारत के स्व में आता है। इसलिए शिवाजी के उस राज्य में रामदास स्वामी ने जो वर्णन किया है, राज्याभिषेक होने के बाद आनंद वन भवनी, तब उन्होंने कहा कि उदंड जहाले पाणी स्नान संध्या करावया मोडिली मांडिली क्षेत्र आनंद वन भवनी, यानी भौतिक समृद्धि के तरफ तो हम जाएंगे ही, और साथ साथ इस आध्यात्मिक साधना करने के लिए भी योग्य सुविधा ऐसी यहाँ पर निर्माण हुई है। तो ये जो तीनों बातें मिलाकर जो भारत का स्व है, ये भारत के स्व को हिंदवी यानी हिंदू शब्द के साथ वास्तव में यह स्व जुड़ा हुआ है। इसलिए मुझे लगता है कि भारत का ये स्व है। और एक लास्ट पॉइंट मैं क्या कहूंगा कि भारत एकमात्र ऐसा देश है दुनिया के 9 बड़े देशों में जहां पर यह समाज का स्वतंत्र जो आपसी ताना बाना है, इसको मैं कहता हूँ राष्ट्र का एक लाइव अस्तित्व है, वो आज भी जीवंत है, लाइव है। इसका ताजा अनुभव हम सब लोगों को अभी हुआ है। ये कोरोना पैंडेमिक में, दुनिया भर में कोरोना पैंडेमिक था, भारत के सिवाय बाहर के सभी देशों में इट वाज ओनली द स्टेट मशीनरी दैट वाज एक्टिव टू सर्व एंड सेव पीपल। भारत में भी स्टेट मशीनरी ने, नर्सिंग स्टाफ ने, मेडिकल स्टाफ ने, सुरक्षा कर्मियों ने, सफाई कर्मचारियों ने बहुत जबरदस्त काम किया है। और इट वाज पार्ट ऑफ देयर ड्यूटी, दे वर पेड सैलरीज फॉर दैट। कुछ अगर गड़बड़ हो जाती तो उनको कॉम्पेंसेशन की व्यवस्था भी थी, फिर भी उन्होंने खूब अच्छा काम किया है। परंतु भारत एकमात्र देश ऐसा है जहां पर सरकारी मशीनरी के अलावा भी लाखों की संख्या में लोग बाहर निकलकर सेवा करने निकल पड़े थे। और भूकंप या बाढ़ के बाद जाकर सेवा करना अलग है। ये जो पैंडेमिक में इन्फेक्शस डिसीज है, मुझे इन्फेक्शन होकर जान को खतरा हो सकता है यह जानते हुए भी पहले पैंडेमिक में 5.5 लाख स्वयंसेवक घर के बाहर निकले थे। केवल स्वयंसेवक नहीं तो समाज का बहुत बड़ा वर्ग बाहर निकला था। अनेक गुरुद्वारा, मठ, मंदिर, सामाजिक संस्थाएं बाहर निकली थी। ऐसा भारत के बाद कभी नहीं हुआ। एक 15 की बैच काम कर रही है, उसमें 3 को इन्फेक्शन होता है, 1 की डेथ होती है, बाकी लोगों ने काम करना बंद नहीं किया है। दिस हैज हैपेंड ओनली इन भारत। ये जो भारत की विशेषता है, ये भी भारत का एक स्व का भाग है। एक आपसी नेटवर्क जो है, एक ताना बाना है, आपसी संबंध है। तो ये जो भारत का स्व है, इस स्व को, भावना को पुष्ट करना, ऐसे रिलेशनशिप को बढ़ाते जाना, यानी वास्तव में ये भारत का स्व है। इसको आप हिंदवी कह सकते हैं। और यह भारत का स्व यहाँ से निर्मित हुआ है, प्रादुर्भूत हुआ है, यहाँ से प्रकट हुआ है। इसने अपनी सीमाओं को रोका नहीं है, सीमाओं तक इसको रोका नहीं है, क्योंकि ये संपूर्ण विश्व को ही एक परिवार मानते हैं। इसलिए वैक्सीन वगैरह की दृष्टि से बाकी देशों ने पेटेंट वगैरह को लेकर उसमें अधिक मुनाफा कमाने का प्रयत्न किया। भारत का देखेंगे, अनेक देशों को उन्होंने वैक्सीन पहुंचाया है। तो गोइंग बियॉन्ड द बॉर्डर्स और संपूर्ण ह्यूमैनिटी का विचार करना, जितनी अपनी क्षमता है, यह भी इस भारत के स्व की विशेषता है। तो शिवाजी के हिंदवी स्वराज्य की कल्पना में यह स्व का भाव यह है, ऐसा मैं मानता हूँ। इसके आधार पर करेंगे तो लोगों को का उसमें उद्यम आगे बढ़ेगा और यह स्वराज्य भी होगा और हर एक को अपने अपने रुचि प्रकृति के अनुसार अपनी स्पिरिचुअल परसूट को आगे बढ़ाने में, समाज को देने में और समाज को आगे बढ़ाने में पूर्ण फ्रीडम स्वातंत्र रहेगा। ऐसा यह भारत का स्व रहा है। मुझे लगता है कि शिवाजी के राज्याभिषेक के निमित्त इस हिंदवी स्वराज में स्व की कल्पना क्या है, ऐसे मेरे विचार मैंने आपके सम्मुख रखे हैं। आपने मुझे मेरे विचार व्यक्त करने के लिए मौका दिया, इसलिए मैं आपका हार्दिक धन्यवाद करता हूं। और टेक्निकल कारणों से बीच में जो व्यवधान आया, इसलिए थोड़ा आपका रसभंग हुआ होगा, उसके लिए आपकी क्षमा याचना करता हूँ। धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू। बहुत बहुत आभारी हूँ सर आपका। बहुत ही सरल भाषा में बहुत ही सुंदर विश्लेषण आपने किया, हिंदवी स्वराज्य की संकल्पना क्या थी, और सबसे बड़ी चीज जो आपने हाईलाइट किया दैट इट इज रियली अबाउट स्व, भारत का स्व, and how it is a way of life. And I think a fundamental point that it was really about adhyatma adharit jivan. I think that is we all need to understand that, obviously laying out wonderfully what are the salient features. You identified 4 of them, and again I think many of us need to really look back again and again that how the Indian persona, the Indian reality, जो भारत की जो सच्चाई है और ये हजारों सालों से है, it is really about spiritual democracy. And I think and you fantastically ended with talking about how this whole ideal of Hindavi Swarajya is so inspirational and should really guide each of us, the ruler and the ruled. I think that's a very important point you made. So thank you very much. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया कि आप आज हमसे जुड़ पाए, और हम सब जैसे हमने देखा कि इनफैक्ट ही इज ट्रैवलिंग, इज ऑलरेडी ऑन हिज वे, हैड कम बैक फ्रॉम मेरठ एंड अगेन इज हेडिंग बैक. सो इट्स रियली एन ऑनर सर दैट you really took time out for us and could really deliver this brilliant address. So thank you very much. And with this, I now request Aayushi ji to also welcome our next speaker, and who is in fact our chief guest, Professor Santishree Pandit. Over to you, Aayushi.
Thank you, Manish ji. Thank you so much. Professor Santishree Pandit is a prominent scholar of political science and international relations with a long and illustrious tenure at the Pune University. She's had numerous publications, research publications, and fellowships to her credit. For us, the important part is that ma'am is our VC, current VC, and she has created history by becoming the first woman to head JNU in the position of the Vice Chancellor. She is also the president of the Indian Political Science Association. But above all, her USP is that she has always been a champion of index-centric approach to research and teaching since decades. And that, I think, makes ma'am a perfect guest of honor and one of the prominent speakers today on the occasion of Shivaji Maharaj's coronation to speak on this very important topic of nation building. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Aayushi. Respected Dr. Manmohan Vaidya ji, Air Marshal Ajit Bhonsle, Dr. Manish Dabhade, Bhavana, and other ladies and gentlemen and faculty and dear friends. The topic today is a symposium celebrating Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's Rajya Abhishek with the idea of Hindavi Swaraj. Already we had a very brilliant talk by Dr. Vaidya ji, but I will go into the issues of how relevant are his ideas to modern India. So first I'll go into the ideas, and then I will see what are the conclusions as students of history, political science, and other social sciences, as well as every citizen of India can draw from. According to Shivaji, Swaraj is the birthright of every human being. He longed for a world which was no longer entangled in the clutches of biases, cruelty, religious conflicts, and discrimination of any kind. Thus, he fought for the freedom not only of the Marathas from the oppressive rule of the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, but also brought in this idea of Hindavi Swaraj. He wanted to establish it. Now, how do we, there is a lot of, historians have been debating what he meant by Hindavi Swaraj. So let's have a look at what are the ideas. If we take from the primary sources, we come to know that he made certain statements that are recorded. Well, first is, he says, remember your duty is to serve our struggle to establish a Swaraj, a state not ruled by external powers. So first, let's say a characteristic of Hindavi Swaraj is freedom from the rule of external powers. And he tells people that it is he says, in the name of Lord Shiva, I want to tell you that I dream of a Raj, Swaraj, our own state that is ruled by us. I want our military bases manned by our own garrisons in places that will be inaccessible to the Adil Shahi or Mughal armies, and we will have never to bow before them. Don't forget that Swaraj is his wish. So there is a spiritual, what just now Dr. Dabhade said, the idea of spiritual nationalism, which becomes very important. He says, I follow the principles of humanity. I neither attack helpless civilians, nor do I take them as slaves. So he clearly says that the Maratha Empire does not rule for rape, loot, and genocide. This is extremely important. Without freedom, we cannot do what we want to and what we aspire to. Without freedom, we die not knowing the very purpose of our life. So he says Hindavi Swaraj is something that is not, attributed to a single individual, but rather to the nation, to the flag, to the land, to the territory. So here you get even a geopolitical, geocultural concept of what we call the Hindavi Swaraj. The warrior king is known for establishing the Maratha Empire, which lasted for close to 2 centuries. At its peak, the empire extended from Attock, which is today lies in Pakistan, to Tanjavur in Tamil Nadu. The credit goes largely to Shivaji's passion and vision, and his brilliance as a warrior leader of armies and a diplomat who could form crucial alliances. The earliest term of the Hindu can be traced back to a letter written from Shivaji to Dadaji Naras Prabhu Deshpande of Rohit Kaur on 17th April 1645, where he wished for Hindavi Swaraj. While the authenticity of the letter is contested, interpretations of the term are varied from different scholars. Some say it meant Indian independence from foreign rule. Others say it simply meant Indian rule. However, religious studies scholar William Jackson takes a step further, stating it meant self-rule of the Hindu people. On the other hand, some of the measures of the warrior emperor took during his rule would lead one to believe that his reign was filled to any particular hatred, or there was not. He never saw there was no hatred for any religion, including the religion of the Mughals or the Adil Shahi. It was Shivaji's immense drive to become a powerful presence in Hind, or what he considered the territory of Hind, that pushed him to take such steps. He also believes this drive was accompanied by the ruler's empathy for the poor who have been suffering for years in endless wars due to the Mughal invasion, reducing the region to unprecedented desperation. For a country associated with rich maritime traditions, I think after the Cholas, it was the Marathas which have come. The lack of a strong navy under many regional and national powers is perplexing. So except perhaps the Cholas and to a lesser extent on the Malabar coast, there are no Indian power to challenge the seas. The home dynasty of Assam had a first-class naval army but was an entirely riverine army built. But with the way, if you see, the Marathas did build and dominated the Western Indian Ocean, especially Sardar Angre, who was a major player. Now, what do we take from the Hindavi Swaraj, whatever documents that we have got from? And as rightly mentioned by Dr. Dabhade, is it for good governance and also for the idea what was measured, said by the Prime Minister, that it would be difficult to imagine what the present form of India would have been if Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was not. So he was a paradigm shift and a very significant ruler, and added that his Hindavi Swaraj was the finest example of good governance. He also said the works done by Shivaji Maharaj on various fronts, including effective use of marine power and watershed management, are still imitable, and as well as his guerrilla warfare technique, which is seen as one of the major warfare techniques that he introduced to, military doctrine. Looking to Shivaji, I would only finally say that we have certain lessons to draw in today. First, reducing India to a civic nation bound only by the constitution disregards history, our rich heritage, culture, and civilization. It also disregards a great figure like Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. I would also say that celebrating history beyond religion is extraordinarily important. Because challenge of a distorted history where you do not have the Maratha Empire, the Cholas or the Ahoms given their right place. So do we take this as an opportunity to fill the gaps in history? And it is very important that we publish a lot more on this period of Indian history, and also the last challenge to the Mughal Empire was from the Marathas. Many few people know that the third battle of Panipat was fought by the Marathas against Ahmad Shah Abdali. So these factors do not come in, because once again, I would like to state that India is not a nation state. It is a civilization state. Along with China, the only civilization state to enter the fourth industrial revolution. So ideas that predate freedom struggle, it predates the arrival of those who eventually made India their home. It is extremely important that we evaluate these ideas. Self-loathing, self-hatred, and a land of the defeated, conquered, cannot be by invaders. This cannot be the only stream. Here you have Hindavi Swaraj and the concept of Chhatrapati Shivaji, which says otherwise. And I thank Dr. Manish Dabhade and his team for bringing in, for celebrating this idea. And this idea really celebrates the concept of India as a Rashtra, and also the idea of Swaraj, not as new as Bal Gangadhar Tilak, but something that went beyond that time. So let us re-evaluate this and look at history and fill up the gaps. And this is the opportunity to see its relevance to modern India. And I think Chhatrapati Shivaji and Hindavi Swaraj are extremely holistic and inclusive as a doctrine, not only of military history, but of good governance. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity. And I congratulate the team of Dr. Manish Dabhade for this very good topic. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, ma'am. As always, a brilliant address. And you really point out how it was so important to understand the relevance of Hindavi Swarajya to modern India. And also, I think the central idea, which again we all need to understand and grapple with, is obviously that it was really about a state not ruled by external powers. And again, the geo-cultural construct, as you rightly pointed out, in fact, can be traced in some ways to Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj with his own idea of Hindavi Swarajya. Very important point that it was not really about hatred towards any other religion. I think it is very important to understand that. very important point also, I think you flagged for us that the security of the state was equally important and of paramount importance, which Chhatrapati identified again and again. And again, the whole Ganimi Kawa, which we could say the strategy of guerrilla warfare, which you rightly pointed out, really was in fact a much advanced addition to warfare capacity and thinking, much ahead of its times. I think that's a very important point you made. And again, this whole that rather than getting into this, I don't know, some sort of nonsense that India is a union of states, that we should be thinking that India is really a civilizational state. And this is not something recent invention. It is a recorded history of all these years. The last and fundamental point, I think, sitting in JNU, which and that is where you have inspired all of us, is really to relook at the history which is being read, which is being taught across the country. And in fact, Hindavi Swaraj tells us that it is really a holistic doctrine, it is an inclusive doctrine. So let's not try to imagine that it's the Indian Constitution which really has been articulating those principles. In fact, the Indian Constitution heavily borrows from civilizational ideas of Bharat as a civilizational state. So thank you, ma'am, for this brilliant address. So with this, I now request Aayushi ji to welcome our next distinguished speaker, Air Marshal Ajit Bhonsle, sir.
Thank you, Manishi. Our next speaker is retired Air Marshal Ajit Bhonsle ji. He's a decorated war veteran and a defense personnel of great stature. Ajit sir has been a former member of the Union Public Service Commission and is currently a mentor to many nationalist organizations, including TIF. Welcome, sir, to the platform. Over to you.
Thank you very much for a very succinct introduction there. Idea of Hindavi Swaraj, and I'm happy to have been given the topic of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaja's Navy, his vision and contemporary relevance. So with a name as Bhonsle and coming from a military background, who had gone to a military school at the age of 12, Bhonsle Military School, Nashik, I think I couldn't have asked for a better topic. The coronation of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj at Raigad in 1674 is perhaps the most important day in the history of India's self-determination, India's quest for Hindavi Swaraj. While extending my greetings to all on this occasion, very auspicious occasion, I also congratulate the organizers of the Indian Futures for their thoughtfulness and a perfect sense of timing. While I am honored to be connected with so many faculties as also students, I am especially privileged and humbled to be in the distinguished company of Dr. Manmohan Vaidya ji, Sah-Sarkaryawah Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, Professor Santishree Pandit ji, Vice Chancellor of Jawaharlal Nehru University, and Dr. Sachchidanand Joshi ji, member of the Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts. As explained very nicely by respected Dr. Manmohan Vaidya ji, उन्होंने हिंदवी और स्व का जो हमें अर्थ बताया और ये बता दिया कि हमारे देश का अस्तित्व और जो एकता है उसका मूल इन दो शब्दों में छुपा हुआ है. फर्दर प्रोफेसर Santishree ji ने बता दिया कि the concept of Hindavi Swaraj is like the nationalism, spiritual nationalism. It has got a geopolitical context, and it's time that we relate it to our own history. And I think that's a lot to take home there. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaja's idea or vision of Hindavi Swaraj was a very comprehensive one. एक बहुत व्यापक और परिपूर्ण उनकी संकल्पना थी. In his mind, there was a total clarity on the aspect of nation, national power, and what is comprehensive national power. व्यापक राष्ट्रीय शक्ति. Although it seems that the idea or concept of the comprehensive national power of CNP appears to be a relatively recent one, hindsight tells us that in Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's mind, this construct was very clear. His thoughts were very clear on this, and he demonstrated that clarity through his actions. The concept of comprehensive national security, and his quest to form a Maratha Navy was one step in that direction, much ahead of his time. Otherwise, these days, we struggle to define comprehensive national power by saying that it is the comprehensive ability of a nation to mobilize and utilize strategic resources of a country to realize national objectives. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's idea was the achieve the objective of Hindavi Swaraj. And there, I feel that he knew what CNP was all about. His vision was not only to establish an independent, self-governed Hindavi Swaraj, but also to establish an independent Hindu nation, which is a formidable continental power that is strong on the land, and also a formidable maritime power, which is equally strong on the seas. And therefore, the contemporary relevance of Shivaji Maharaja's vision of a strong maritime capability, the nation needs we don't need any more overemphasis that even after 3.5 centuries, it's relevant to us even today. We as a nation have a great legacy of strong maritime traditions. The Rig Veda, Puranas, Manusmriti, Kautilya's Arthashastra, Yukti Kalpataru, Tamil Samgam, Greek literature of their contemporary times make abundant reference to maritime activities of we, the ancient Indians. The War Office of the Mauryan Emperor Chandragupta has as one of its 6 boards called the Nava Parishad, or the Board of Admiralty, which controlled the entire national shipping during the Chandragupta Maurya's rule. It was a maritime prowess which facilitated the religious, cultural, and political, also the commercial expeditions of the Guptas, the Kalingas, the Mauryas, the Pallavas, the Chalukyas, the Cholas, and the Cheras to far-flung areas in southeast, even touching China and beyond. Now, this maritime ascendancy that we gained in the earlier part of the medieval period, medieval age, that is 6th to 13th century, however, we lost it because of some complacency during the late medieval period, that is 13th to 16th century. And as you can see, we are inching towards the era of Shivaji Maharaj. During the 13th to 16th century, most continental rulers of India displayed a rueful sea-blindedness. They were blind towards the oceans. Samudrik Adhyatva, I would call it. And that ultimately led to their downfall at the hands of extra-regional powers. And we know very much from the history. The advent of Europeans began with the discovery of sea route to India by Portuguese adventurer Vasco da Gama in 1498. Following the Portuguese, other European powers like England, Holland, France, Denmark, all came to India for trade after establishing their respective East India companies, and they could gain upper hand over us, the local coastal kingdoms, only because of their superior seafaring, shipbuilding, artillery, and ammunition. Now let's now have a brief look at the geopolitical situation in the mid-17th century, the era of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Maharashtra was under the distributed rule of 2 independent kingdoms or sultanates. One was the Adil Shahi of Bijapur and the Qutub Shahi of Golconda. The Mughals had already subsumed the Nizam Shahi of Ahmednagar and had appointed a Subedar to look after that. In the Konkan region, the situation was different. Parts of coastal areas were under the influence of different seafaring powers. This mainly included the Siddhis of Janjira at Dandi Jarajapuri, who were great sailors from Abyssinian origin, and they held sway over the sea. They were there for nearly 2.5 centuries with their very built ships. The other people that they were the Portuguese, who had established domination over the west coast of India due to their strong navy and were well established at Goa, Diu, Daman, and Vasai. Then the English, who had established trading factory at Surat in 1613 itself, and they had created a strong naval presence in South Gujarat, which further expanded after they acquired the island of Bombay in 1661 as dowry from the Portuguese. In this geopolitically fragmented, and of course they were Dutch at Wengurla in 1636. And in this geopolitically fragmented scenario, a new star had risen in the Deccan, who was none other than Shivaji Maharaj. And he was to change the destiny of Maharashtra Desh and Bharat Rashtra. Shivaji Bhonsle, son of Shahaji Bhonsle. and he had begun to carve out an autonomous Swarajya with its core in the Mawar region. And after gaining steady successes against Adil Shahi's small kingdoms and areas in the plains from 1645 to 1659, from his age of 15 for next 15 years, Shivaji Maharaj turned his attention to Konkan after the Battle of Pratapgarh and after he had slayed Afzal Khan. By the end of 1659, Shivaji Maharaj had gained control over Kalyan, Bhivandi, and many forts in the northern Konkan, including Raigad, which subsequently became his capital. What were the objectives of Shivaji Maharaj to develop a sea power? In the Konkan areas over the land, the Mavadas of Shivaji, they were absolutely unstoppable. However, when it came to the coastal areas and the seas, they were ineffective in checking the adversaries' activities beyond the coast. Konkan had numerous ports which were regularly visited by trading vessels from Persia, Africa, and Europe. In Konkan, Shivaji Maharaj's main enemy was the Siddhi of Janjira, who managed to evade capture by Marathas by moving out at sea with his flotilla and remaining secure in the Janjira fort. Simultaneously, Shivaji decided that he must build up the naval capabilities, looking at the English, the Portuguese, the French, and the Dutch, and they were doing the tradings at will. Thus, it was Shivaji Maharaja who grew conscious about his lack of sea power and was spurred with the vision of Maratha Navy. He was quick to realize that unless he was able to extend his power over the sea, the dream of Swarajya will not be fulfilled. The prime objectives behind development of Maratha Navy were fourfold. First was to protect the Konkan coast from aggressive activities of the Siddhis and the European powers. The second was to prevent interference of European powers in the formation of Swarajya itself. Third was to exercise greater control over the sea trade carried out from ports of Konkan. And the last was to protect friendly merchant ships from piracy, looting, plundering, and imposition of taxes by external powers. And all these issues are still alive in these waters around India. Now let us see how did he build up his capacity? How did he go about capacity building of the Maratha Navy? Shivaji Maharaj picked up a pool of volunteers, sailors from the Konkan region itself to build up the Maratha Navy. He focused on two-pronged strategy, one of shipbuilding and the second of building the forts around the strategic locations around the coast. Shivaji Maharaj ordered construction of warships at Kalyan and Bhivandi. He took help of Portuguese to build ships, and the Portuguese controlled the creeks of Bhivandi, Kalyan, and Thane, etc. It is very interesting to note that Shivaji Maharaj contracted European experts for shipbuilding as also for naval artillery development. He exploited the inter-rivalries between these European powers to his own advantage. And in about just 5 years, between 1659 to 1665, that is 6 years, Shivaji Maharaj had developed a sizable naval force and taken up the combination of plans of creating fortifications along the coast. In 1665, Shivaji Maharaj's navy comprised of 85 ships. 6 years, 85 ships, starting from the scratch. Look at that speed. And they were of varying tonnage between 30 to 150 tons, which included 3 large gurabs, as they were called. There were large numbers of galbats also. And this formed 2 flotillas, which he called as subas. Each flotilla was headed by a subedar called the flotilla commander. The other thrust area of naval development was fortification of creek mouth near the trading hubs, building forts on offshore islands and building forts on the coast. Shivaji Maharaj commenced construction at a sea fort called Vijayadur after he captured it from the Adil Shah in 1653. Post-construction, as you would understand, was a capital-intensive activity for which he resorted to plundering raids on the wealthy opponents in locations like Rajapur, Surat, Hubli, Basrur, etc. So he also had a financial model for this development. In due course, island sea forts were constructed at number of occasions such as Khanderi, Kulaba, Suvarnadurg, and Sindhudurg. And coastal forts were constructed at Gopalgarh, Purangarh, Jaigarh, Vijayadurg, and Devgarh. Now, if you see the notable actions that happened and expedition that he took place during the reign of Shivaji's navy, the small navy that was initially raised was divided into subas, and each headed by one by Naik Bhandari and the other by Darya Sagar Daulat Khan. And this proved to be quite effective to keep under check the activities of Siddhis, Portuguese, and the English. In 1664, the Maratha ships captured some transiting ships from Persia to Muscat, which were heading for the Adil Shah ports in Kudal and Vengurla. In the same year, Shivaji Maharaj himself led a campaign to Basrur on the Canada coast, in which he participated, which was a success. After the successful campaign at Basrur, the Maratha flotilla, 25 ships, captured many smaller boats of the Portuguese, which caused the Portuguese to reciprocate in similar manner. Shivaji Maharaj's imprisonment to Agra around that time gave a free run to the Siddhis to plundering the Konkan and consolidate their hold over the sea. Shivaji Maharaj escaped from Agra in 1667, and without wasting time, he once again focused his attention onto the sea. The Siddhis, with the help of, and there he started attacking the Portuguese as also the Siddhis. There was a taha or treaty between Adil Shah and the Portuguese with the Marathas. With this, the Siddhis lost the support of Adil Shah. However, Siddhis joined hands with English, and then there was a very long tussle between the Marathas and the Siddhis. In 1672, Aurangzeb sent a naval expedition to help the Siddhis against Shivaji Maharaj, and this caused considerable damage to the Maratha Navy, standing Maratha Navy. Shivaji Maharaj did not lose heart, and he sought assistance from the French to build his navy and the naval artillery all over again. And from 1673 to 1677, Shivaji Maharaj's navy had several encounters with the Siddhis, which prominently included the siege of Janjira, the famous 1675 to 76 siege by the Marathas, which was not successful in dislodging the Siddhis. Just a year before Shivaji Maharaj's death, that is in 1679, during monsoons, the Maratha Navy made serious efforts in fortifying the strategically located fort of Hindavi, which is right at the mouth of island of Bombay. Obviously, the British were not happy about it, and they started attacking that fortification. The brave Marathas fought against that and still completed the construction. The Siddhis were invited into occupying the neighboring island Underi by the Britishers, and then started a long standoff between Siddhis and Marathas off Bombay coast. Now, lastly, let us look at the strategic impact of Shivaji Maharaja's naval vision. After the Cholas of Tamil Nadu, Shivaji Maharaj was the first Indian ruler who raised the navy with a political purpose of defending the Hindavi Swarajya and projecting power at sea, thereby bolstering the comprehensive national power of Hindavi Swaraj. Before the Maratha Navy, there was a naval force raised by the Punjali Maraccas of Calicut, who served as the admirals of the Samudri king. The difference was that the Maraccas were sea lords who offered their services to the kings in power and were not necessarily always loyal to the king. Shivaji Maharaj, on the other hand, stands tall to recognize and work hard to achieve standing Maratha Navy, which was an integral part of the comprehensive national power, the Hindavi Swaraj. Shivaji Maharaj quickly grasped the essential elements of sea power excised by the Europeans and suitably adopted them, and investing considerable time, money, and effort to have a fighting Maratha naval force for the Hindavi Swaraj. Shivaji Maharaj laid down foundation of a powerful Maratha navy, which subsequently, commanded by Sarkil Kanoji Angre, a navy which held sway over the next 200 years over the waters of Indian west coast with a flotilla of more than 200 ships. I'll end my presentation by quoting Ramchandra Amatya Bhavdekar from Kolhapur, who was a minister during the Shivaji's time as also Sambhaji and Chhatrapati Rajaram's time. He talks about sea power, and he's articulated that very much in his Ajna Patra, and he says, and I quote, "One who has a strong navy has the sea, and one who has the sea rules on the land." Unquote. Jai Hind, Jai Shivaji.
Thank you very much, sir, for again, I mean, brilliant address after brilliant address today. Obviously, I think the most significant point where we all, in fact, should be locating this entire debate is that the Rajyabhishek Divas should be seen as, in fact, a very important date in the history of India's self-determination. That really the roots go that back, not 1885 or not even 1857. It goes, in fact, back to Chhatrapati Shivaji's whole conception of Hindavi Swarajya. The very important point, and in fact, which is sadly had been neglected maybe in the early years of independence, that how important that if we don't look at history, we are really, I mean, that is going to be a problem. And that's exactly why we should be revisiting our history. And in fact, Shivaji Maharaja's whole focus on comprehensive national security, I think, really lays down a template of sorts for national security decision making. In many ways, obviously, you really pointed out in excruciating detail and backed by analyses also, that how Shivaji Maharaj gradually, but with a dedicated focus, looked at the sea power, the significance of sea power, and again, not just in the number of ships, but also in terms of strategy. But also, as you rightly pointed out, there was a financial model in place to really build that build those sorts of capabilities. So I think these lessons are so relevant, and looking at them again, adding in fact, that is also what Professor Santishree Pandit, Vice Chancellor, pointed out, that it is that we should be really going back to our history and having and really not take what is being dished out to us, especially since 47, and really look at maybe a non-Marxist sort of approach, and purely Indic approach to looking at history, and to in fact drawing the right lessons for the current times, and dealing with the challenges, national security challenges, also the maritime challenge. So I think thank you so much, sir, again. And Dr. Joshi, Professor Joshi, would be joining in a couple of minutes. In fact, is rushing back from a meeting, so we can have some questions for Bhonsle sir, and obviously if Professor Pandit, with her permission, if she's still with us, we can have some questions for her too, just for a couple of minutes. So Joshi sir is already with us, so we'll postpone just a sec. Great, sir. Joshi sir, you can unmute yourself. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Great.
I hope I'm audible. I hope I'm audible.
Absolutely, sir, and you are just in time. So I request my colleague Aayushi Ketkar to introduce Joshi sir. Over to you, Aayushi.
Thank you. Professor Sachchidanand Joshi is a known name in the Delhi circles. He does amazing work when it comes to Indian art and culture. Professor Joshi is the member secretary of Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts, IGNCA, which is a premier organization under the Ministry of Culture, which showcases and promotes India's rich culture and heritage. He's also the chairperson of the advisory body on tangible cultural heritage and diverse cultural traditions of India relating to UNESCO. Welcome to you, sir. Look forward to hearing you on this very important topic of Hindavi Swaraj.
A very good afternoon, everyone, and to the fellow panelists. I can see Air Marshal Bhonsle here, and other distinguished participants, other colleagues who are listening to this telecast, this webcast on YouTube and other social media. It is indeed a great pleasure to be here on this important occasion. That is the Swarajya Rohan Divas. We know that we often celebrate, we in fact celebrate Chhatrapati Shivaji Jayanti. And in fact, the Jayanti is celebrated at least twice in on two different dates. And that is supposed to be a very important occasion. But Swarajya Rohan Divas is something which we must celebrate, which has often been neglected by a larger number of intellectuals. Why this has happened is because we all know that Chhatrapati Shivaji has always been respected and regarded as a great warrior, and more than that, a great strategist. He was a strategist as far as his warfares are concerned, because we know that how he has created the entire empire with a small force, with a limited force, that too relative as far as the more enthusiastic. They had all zeal and rigor and determination to fight the battle, but they did not have those kind of ammunitions and those kind of facilities and those kinds of numerical strength within his entire armor. But despite that, Chhatrapati Shivaji managed to win force, and he really Aurangzeb a lot. But as a political strategist, as a statesman, Chhatrapati Shivaji has been relatively less discussed. And why less discussed? Because the entire focus has always remained on his gallantry, his warfares, and everything. But as a political strategist, as a great statesman, as a great administrator, the valuation of Chhatrapati Shivaji has to be understood by the intelligentsia, especially the youngsters who are trying to understand the importance of Shivaji in Indian political context, governance in India. Recently, we have been doing some research work trying to find out the root of democracy in India. And we always think that India has been the mother of democracy in the entire world, because the democratic system is not only a 75-year-old democratic system when we got independence from the British rule, but the democratic legacy continued for more than 5,000 years. In fact, when we study the Saraswati Sindhu civilization, even there also we find traces of very well organized democratic system in that Saraswati Sindhu civilization. Inscriptions after inscriptions in the staggered period, maybe in Uttara Meru inscriptions, you can see in Tamil Nadu that there was a system where the people used to really elect the leader for their sabhas and samitis, and the system was very well regulated and organized, very regulated system, big feeling for the entire society. Very interestingly, Sabha and Samiti, I cannot right now wordings in Sanskrit, but in Atharvaveda it is written for a king, Sabha and daughters like Ketkar. That shows two kind of importance, like Sabha and Samiti were like upper house and lower house, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. That concept was there in the Atharvaveda. And the word comes as Duhita. Duhita means daughter. So that also shows the importance of daughter even in the ancient period, that is in the period of Atharvaveda. That kind of tradition Indian democratic system has in the time. Why I'm telling you all this is that when we enter into the medieval period in Indian history, uh, a larger portion of medieval period has been wrongly interpreted. I will not say wrongly interpreted, but it has been a misrepresentation of facts that has distorted the entire history in the medieval period. Unfortunately, people of my age, or maybe people who are much older than me, read only that part of history. And in that part of history, we have always been told history of defeats. We were defeated by him, we were defeated by them, we were defeated by them, we were conquered by them. And what are the pieces? What are the finer traditions in the history were never being told to us. That is why we only learn about a limited history related to Chhatrapati Shivaji. That was only limited to his gallantry, his warfare system. He conquered various forts Mughals. One fine thing which Shivaji, of course, taught us, that he always knew, and that is a very important thing, that when you are a statesman, you are a political, it's not always correct to give a tough fight. Sometimes you also have to think very strategically where you have to put a stop and where you have to withdraw for some time. Because for some regain strength and come back with double force. The day about which we are talking, let us see how beautifully he has democratized his entire political system, and that is very important. It was not only the autocratic system which was governed or ruled by one king or one emperor, but it was a system which had a very, very well defined roles, very well defined procedures, even very well defined persons with qualifications, how they would be adopted, how they would be included in the governance, and what would be their role in the governance. Like his entire policy of Ashtapradhan, and Amats and Pants and Vaknavis and Sarsenapatis and Dabir, Pandit, Chhatrapati Shivaji. Important histories, different organizations, they have two of his governance. One was Karkhana and one was Mahal, work which were allocated, and Maharashtra kind of were allocated. And these very well Khana, like Ambar Khana, like Sarbat Khana, like Top Khana, Mutpak Khana, Vistar Khana, Nakkar Khana, Talim Khana, Pil Khana, Faraz Khana, Abdar Khana, Shikar Khana, Dahad Khana. So these were the 18, the Karkhane. And then he had 12 Mahals. They were known as Saudagir, then Palki, then Kothi, then Imara, Seri, Daruni, That. I think just look at this. It cannot be created in just one day. Why I'm trying to bring you this point. Created in just one day. It has a deep thought, deep philosophy of governance, which imagine Shivaji might have been thinking along with his other Sardars, even while fighting the battles, because he has to execute whatever promises he has given to the public. And that way, he really created the whole thing. In fact, when we look at the system and realize that his dreams eventually almost true at a later part when Peshwa almost ruled 3/4 the Bharat, and from Atak to Katak they had their own polity. So that was the beauty of Chhatrapati Shivaji, how he created everything within that. But my my role is also to sort of just explain that his governance was not purely administrative governance. His governance had a typical tone and tenor related to culture, tradition, samskars. His government was full of samskars. That was the beauty of Chhatrapati Shivaji's governance, and we know how it was inculcated, and for the entire this thing, because we all know that it's related to Kalyan Subedar soon, that Kalyan Subedar's daughter-in-law, which was brought by his Sardars, and he said that my mother, and we must not torture her, and must give her respect. And that was the adopted of his governance, which was very interesting. The language of his governance was almost in every nook and corner of his entire kingdom was Modi Lipi, in which the revenue records were written during that time. And why it was written in Modi is very interesting, because he wanted to promote his own language. He wanted to promote his own style of keeping the records. I think people who are from Maharashtra would also agree with me that even today, most of the old revenue records in the Maharashtra are written in Modi Lipi. And as part of IGNCA, we also try to sort of find out the experts who can read and write Modi Lipi, and it is really difficult these days to find experts in Modi Lipi. I am told that even in collectorates for a substantial time, they used to have some expert who could read Modi Lipi documents, and maybe they were given some nice honorarium for that. Why I'm saying this is because Shivaji wanted to have some kind of a unison in his entire kingdom, entire Rajya, Hindavi Swaraj, and for that he has established important own mother tongue and language. So today when we fight over language, today when we fight over the supremacy of a particular language, we realize that how mother tongue plays an important role in bringing out the ethos, the proper ethos in your governance. Another aspect of Chhatrapati Shivaji's entire governance was related to the issue is that Chhatrapati Shivaji very, very carefully realized that he can't extract money from his form of in his Hindu Raj. Manish ji, am I audible now? I don't know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very much audible.
I'm really sorry for the disturbances. We have the poorest of the poor network today. So it is constantly coming in to
I think it's got disconnected.
Yeah, I guess we've lost him.
Shall we take questions for Ajit sir? Muted.
Aayushi ji, in fact, all the speakers had requested to end by almost 5:30, and we have already crossed 5:30, so I don't think we can have questions. But let's wait for a minute or so for Joshi sir to join us back, and then maybe make his conclusions, and then we end it there. Oh, he has lost the connection. Okay, so let's, let me thank Joshi sir again for making some very insightful points about Hindavi Swarajya. Obviously, as many of here and many on Zoom would agree that we should be, rather than, the popular history is really focused on Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaja's military exploits. But as in fact was pointed out by Ajit Bhonsle sir, that there is a real side to Shivaji Maharaj, which is really about military capacities, about building military power. And in fact, Joshi sir went to the other side and really opened up the other side of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, which was his role as a statesman, his role as a political strategist. And in fact, how important it was to study Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaja's democratic system. In fact, he completely democratized the administrative system. So I think that's a very important point which he flagged for us. And again, many would agree here that ultimately the Hindu Swarajya is really about the deep thought, and in fact, philosophy of governance. Which we all should be really studying more and more. So thank you, Joshi sir. Unfortunately, we are having a bad connection, so he has sent his apologies. And let me take this opportunity to really put in a formal vote of thanks. So we are heavily indebted to Dr. Manmohan Vaidya ji, who joined us today to deliver the keynote address, Professor Santishree Pandit, who in fact has addressed the Indian Futures events a couple of times over last many years. But her first program, her first in fact address with us after creating history and joining as JNU's Vice Chancellor. So it's great to have her give this address. Air Marshal Ajit Bhonsle and Shri Sachchidanand Joshi, in fact, have been mentors to me and mentors to the Indian Futures, and we have been regularly been guided by their thoughts, by their ideas about taking the Indian Futures ahead. So thank you, really thank from the bottom of my heart to each one of you for really sparing time and really enlightening all of us with brilliant analyses. And I'm so happy that I really and really in fact very fortunate that we could really assemble such a star cast who could come and speak to us at really very short notice. So thank you all again, and thank you to participants who are joined here, who are still with us, and many who are on our YouTube channel. So thank you very much, and please do follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or whatever social media with @Indian Futures for our earlier programs and for our forthcoming upcoming programs. So thank you so much. Have a great evening. Thank you.